Hey there. I want to know, what's your gut telling you? What is it telling you that you already know? Let's talk about that. Hey there. I see you sitting in the shadows. Welcome to Keep Creating You. This podcast was created to bring Generation X women a plan and strategy for the next part of their life. Are you one of those women who lived in their 20s and 30s raising children, and you found yourself looking at your life and wondering, what's next? Then this podcast is for you. We discuss how to look at the next half of your life and decide what your next steps will be. Whether that is creating a business, starting a side hustle, or maybe you plan to stay in the career you love. How do you plan to get the most out of your life? How do you plan to keep creating you? Join me for this episode as we discuss a few steps for the next part of your life. So how do you know what you know? And what do you do about that? I know this is such a weird topic, right? Such a weird thing to say. But I want to know what you listen to when you have a gut reaction. Are you the type of person that has a gut reaction and says, oh, no, never mind, I'm not listening to that, and runs the other way? Or are you the type of person that has a gut reaction and stands up and says, that reaction is the reaction I had, and I am no longer moving forward with whatever that might be? You know, honestly, I've been reading a lot of self-help books, and I'm reading this one book. It's called, I believe, Captivate or Captive something. I'll put it in the show notes. But the cool thing about it is that it actually talks about your gut reaction. It actually talked a couple chapters ago about this. And when I had written the topic down months ago, I actually wasn't reading this book. And then I read the book and I forgot. And now I see that this topic has come up again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so crazy. I actually read this book and it had this information in the chapter about it. And it specifically talks about people's gut reactions and what they do about those reactions. How do you know what you know? And that is usually done via a gut type reaction. So, you know, if you see something, of course, anything like fight or flight type thing, those are gut reactions. And a lot of times people do listen to those. They do understand and they do get it. But sometimes it's not just cut and dry as in you're in danger or no, this is exciting. You know, sometimes it's a little bit in between, and you have to really listen to what your gut is telling you, what you know is telling you. So if you're in a situation and, for instance, you're in a situation and somebody at the water cooler is talking smack about somebody, of course, your first reaction is, you know, maybe that person's the town gossip or the office gossip, and you think, oh, I'm not listening to that because that is not, you know, she never has anything good to say, or he never has anything good to say about that, anybody. So you're probably going to omit that. But maybe that person said something and that thought stayed in your head. And then you come to find out maybe a week or two later that that little inkling that was in your head is actually true. So you knew that, and you knew what that person said was true. You just maybe didn't put two and two together until later, right? But wouldn't it be great if we could figure out how to put those two and two together earlier rather than later? Because sometimes we are just ignoring our gut, or we're ignoring what we know because of where it came from. I know, it's so interesting to think about this. So having somebody say something, maybe this was negative or maybe it was positive, although I'm going to suggest that positivity actually would breed more of you thinking about it. Whereas negative things or things that are way out there, wildly out there, people have a tendency to underthink about. So they'll say, no, that didn't happen. Or they'll say something like, I shouldn't think about that. In your head, of course, I shouldn't think about that. But again, as in we talked about a couple of episodes ago, once you have that baby idea, there is always a manifestation that's happening, right? And again, once you've had that baby idea stuck in your brain vault somewhere, you're going to say, oh yeah, that's right. I did hear that, when you hear it next time. And when you find out it's true. How many times have somebody said, for maybe a missing person, oh my gosh, I saw that person and she looked fine, or he looked fine. And then you think about it and you say, oh, you know what? Now that the news is telling me that that person had a tattoo on their left arm, I do remember that tattoo. That's what stood out. I remember that clear as day. And I remember now where I saw that person. You never know what's going to trigger that idea of what you know in your head, right? And listening to your gut and listening to those triggers is something that I think we have kind of tried to tone down in our lives. We had more of these thoughts when we were younger. Definitely, if it's a fight or flight specifically, that definitely we listen to. But the other subtle hints, subtle ideas, we don't listen to. We don't have a tendency to pay attention to. I'm even going to bring in the idea of, I think it's the 6-person rule, where I know 6 people, and of those 6 people, they know somebody. We are all connected by 6 people. I can't remember exactly what that is, but that's kind of another way of thinking about this, right? So you have this thought, or you've heard this thought. It kind of came up out of the blue type of thought. And then you maybe aren't thinking about it, but then something else happens and you think about that thought. Or, you realize, oh, I know that person. Yeah. And then you just say, that's so weird. That's kind of a coincidence. But is it a coincidence? Is it really a coincidence? Or was it really something that you already knew, right? We just happened to say it was a coincidence. But I think in some cases we already knew. And some people are really good at this. Some people have already honed this idea of listening to their gut, listening to what they know better than others. I am working on listening. I have a note on my laptop, and it says pause and think. Pause, stop and think, pause and think. And I have to do that because I have a tendency to just keep going. Whether or not that be through the way I was brought up, or whether or not that was a learned behavior from the TV show, and now, of course, through podcasting, I personally don't particularly like to have any dead air. So I will just keep rambling. You're probably thinking, yeah, you do. No, I will just keep going because I'm not stopping to think. But those people that do stop, pause, and think do end up being those same people that are able to put 2 and 2 together way quicker than the other people that aren't thinking. Now, some people just aren't even aware. That's absolutely, those people are out there too. We all know somebody like that. But interestingly enough, I think those people that are not aware are actually way more aware than we think they are. They just aren't really putting that forward for us. But I definitely think that if you just gave yourself a few minutes to stop and pause, you would actually find out that your gut reaction is accurate and you know a little bit more of what you're looking for. I know, kind of interesting, huh? Just thinking about that. I'm going to just suggest that you take a moment, stop and pause, And I know a couple of episodes ago, I might have called this meditation, but you don't have to listen to yourself breathe, and maybe you don't even want to meditate. But I do think that when you stop, don't talk, pause, and think about it, a lot of times, not only will you have a better conversation with somebody, but it will give your brain the time to catch up to where you are and what you're actually thinking about. This week, I'm going to do a lot more stopping and pausing and maybe relaxing, right? Let's do that too. Because if we're already stopped and paused, you might as well relax a second or two. And just take in what those other people around you are saying, because you never know what it is that you can contribute until you stop, pause, and think about it. So let's try that. Until next time, I hope you keep creating you. And again, just give yourself a little bit of grace and stop and think about what the next steps are. Until next time. Thank you for listening to Keep Creating You. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like the show, I would love it if you'd hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. I would also totally appreciate it if you gave me a rating or a review. I'd love to know if this information is resonating with you. If you're looking for more information about myself or this podcast episode, you can find that over at kpcreativemedia.com/podcast. You can always find the links and resources mentioned on the show there. And if you're looking to start your own podcast, let me know. I'd love to help you. Let's talk about your idea. What's your next step in your life? Until next time, see you soon.